building a 3D, which is three-dimensional, horizontal fence. Now, the reason I call it three-dimensional is one, it sounds sexy, but two, it's because we're going to be using traditionally a 5/4 inch by 6 inch lumber going horizontal across the fence. Around eye level, we're going to use a 2x6 just to have a little bit of texture and some pop. But we're also going to build in some planters. We're going to make the planters out of the same 5/4 inch lumber so that it'll just be raised off the surface of the wall. That'll be happening at a later date because first we have to finish the entire fence. We'll cut in the hole, build our box, slide it in, brace it, and attach it with construction adhesive on the other side. The way we're attaching our fence to our fence post is real simple. We're using the camo screw system, which is awesome because it comes in at an angle just off the rounded edge of the wood, and it keeps the surface screws out of the visibility. And once they're buried, a couple of decent rains, the wood will swell up and grow over the screw hole, and you'll never see another screw hole again. That'll allow this fence to last for about 20, 25 years before you start to see any signs of wear, and should be more than enough for them to enjoy it for a lot of years to come. So this is the camo screwing system. Saw this on the market a few years ago for the first time, but wasn't sure how it was going to perform. Tried it out on some real simple deck surface type things and was pleased with the result it gave. A little more labor intensive than you might expect as far as the screwing down of the floor is concerned, but it definitely outperforms a traditional surface screw to such a huge degree that you can definitely ask the clients for additional, costs when you're doing this kind of a thing. So I was down in Vegas 2 years ago at the trade show, international trade show for construction, and they had this demonstration. And so these guys from Camo were down there, and they've been driving around this little piece of deck that they built with the camo screws, and they leave it outside the shop. And on this decking is half of it's done with the camo screw, half is done with surface screw. And as you would guess, pressure treated lumber, when it has surface screws, every one of the areas where the screw is starts to rot because when it rains, it holds water there. So it's excessive wear at the screw head penetration. So what this system does, and the change was this, that the camo wood looked almost brand new, and it was 12 years old. And so we started talking, and now that I understand how the system works, it's really even more brilliant. So they have this new rig out, designed for 5/4 inch board by 6 inch. You pull this up, it spreads the tongs, you let go, and now it's attached to the board. Nice and simple. The new system is designed for speed. The old one wasn't. You could only put a screw on each side. Now you can put a screw on both sides, and you can just drive the screw right into the board on each side, and then you can take it out and go to the next location. So camo screws do two things. One, they extend the length of the life of the wood. Your deck surface won't develop the splinters around the screw nails, the discoloration. When you do restaining, it stays even and consistent instead of those dark spots around the screws. But the second thing it does, because it doesn't create areas where water sits, the wood doesn't start to decay and then splinter. So if you have a screw hole in the wood, the one thing that'll happen is the wood starts to cup and splinter. So what Camos does, this keeps your wood nice and smooth so that you can be barefoot on your deck without catching a toe on a piece of wood sticking out. And that's another one of their benefits. In springtime, you can actually just take a sanding pole, give it a light sanding, refresh your color, and you're back to a smooth surface of wood again. So the reason we do these videos is to help the do-it-yourselfers. So a lot of do-it-yourselfers don't have help around. So I'm going to show a lot of how to do it alone kind of tricks when you're working. So first of all, we're going to hang this first board, which I've already found with my level. It's the straightest board in the bunch. And I'm going to attach that to the fence. And I'm going to level it off till it's perfect. Then I'm going to use a string line to create the line that I'm going to build the rest of the fence on. But in order to do this, it stretches over 3 posts. So we have a center mark, 6 feet, set a screw. Then all we got to do is walk over to the post and mount it. So when you're hanging a board, it's nice and simple. We're in the middle. We're going to create a simple lever. I'm going to mount that screw, take our level, set it on top of the board, and we're going to get a second screw here just to fix it when we're really happy with our location. It's perfect. Now if you come straight on that with the camera, see how it's exactly between the lines? So whenever you have an air bubble that's between the lines, in construction we consider that level. But when it's exactly dead on 1/16 of an inch of gap on each side of that bubble, that is exactly level. Now that it's perfectly level, we're just gonna tack in the other end. So now I'm taking some of this really nasty bright colored string and I'm gonna run it all the way down. And the idea here is when you lift, it's just like doing a chalk line on a floor. So you've got a fixed point and the other point of that board, which is level. We're gonna move this string until it's just barely touching the top of that board. We're not gonna be upset with that. Now the reason we level with anywhere between the lines is because there's no way you're gonna go to the hardware store, find a couple hundred pieces of wood to do this fence and have them all perfectly level. Neither do you want to be installing this with a block of wood on a screw and forcing everything straight. The more you touch it, the more you're gonna make it look bad. So the idea here is to try to find one level line, at least do a straight line, and then we're gonna stagger our joints. And that'll help us to keep things nice and tight and square. So that if we have a board that has a warp, it'll be easy to identify and we'll know where to fix it. Instead of just slowly bending the whole fence up, which is what happens if you try to start here and work your way down. So now we've got to get these boards installed. Okay. So we set our posts approximately 6 feet apart. Approximately because we cheated, we intentionally made it just a couple inches shy. So the reality is, middle of the post is 141.5. And the reason I did that is twofold. One, a lot of the times when you're buying the lumber for the fence, there'll be splits in the end of the board. And we didn't want to have that ugliness, so we wanted to have the ability to cut them down to make them pretty. And two, because we want to stagger our joints, we don't have the luxury of finding a post that's just a little bit off center as far as our midpoint on the hole. We're on a big slope, we're digging into clay, we might find rocks, there's a lot of variables. So by intentionally planning a little bit shy, we can sacrifice cutting the wood, lose a couple inches on every 12-foot board. It's not going to increase your cost of production that much, but it is going to give you a little bit of mercy room when you're building your fence so you don't run into a problem that you have to get creative problem solving and wreck it. So our board to the center is 141 inches and a half. And you'll see that at the end of the board usually takes a dark stain. Here I got an ugly knot. I got a sticker with a staple. All these things that I just don't want to have to contend with when I'm building my fence. Get a nice clean cut. Now one other thing that I know that the end of this board is square, so that when I butt my next board up against it, I'm not going to have a mill run factory 1 or 2 degree slope cut that sometimes is common with these boards. So now I know I'm going to be really happy with the way this performs. So we've marked off the position of our 4x4 post. Like I mentioned, I just set the camo in there, lock it in place. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pre-drill the hole. I can't remove the fastener. The reason being, these screws are very unique. They do not have a tip. They're just cut off with a cutter in the assembly line. And the reason for that is that this is designed to bore through the wood, come really ugly like. And what that does is it keeps the wood from splitting. So when you're near the end of a piece of wood and you try to drive a regular screw, you'll find the wood will split on that screw line. So the trick for carpenters is we'd put the screw there and we'd go in reverse and drill it a little bit and then we go forward, it won't split. But this screw is designed to eliminate that problem, so I can drive the screw right on the edge. No problem. So before I put this board up, now that I've got the holes pre-drilled, I can drive it in easy. So here's the block that I cut off earlier. Just to give you an idea, if I try to put that screw in, it just wants to drive all over the wood. Even if I'm holding the screw in position, it takes incredible amount of difficulty to get that lined up. So that's not gonna work. It's gonna drive you crazy. You're gonna slip the drill bit off the screws more times than not and put holes in your fingers. Best bet, pre-drill before you mount the wood up. Get the screws in place, find the holes, get them set up, ready to go. Especially when you're working alone as a DIYer, you want to have these in place, pre-drilled, with the screws mounted, ready to go before you lift that board up. Because I'll tell you, when you get it in that sweet spot and you're right on that level string, you're going to want to drive that screw right away. You don't want to hesitate. So here we go, we lift up our board, let's get it flipped over. Now, this is not that tricky. Eyeball, we can find the top of that string. Here we are. We're gonna lift it right up to the top of the string here. There's my sweet spot. Of course, my screw is all set and ready to go. Now, that gets buried on a 45-degree angle. We've already identified the crown of the wood, so this is not going to be a problem. Our wood isn't going to split around on us. You can see how the head is completely buried. So it looks like a lot of work getting it set up, but once it's set up, it goes in pretty quick. So the camo system is designed for deck boards. Our horizontal fence, because when you buy the lumber, it usually comes with too much moisture and it takes a few weeks to dry, it'll shrink a little bit on us, leaving some gaps. So we're doing both sides of our neighbor's fence line, so we're gonna adjust which side of the line goes where so that there's no direct line through, okay? But because of this, our ability to put the screw in advance is diminished. So you just take a nail punch, give that screw somewhere to start, and then you can drive it in. Problem solved. So basically, in order to finish this fence, all we have to do is exactly the same thing we've just done 50 or 60 times, and we should be good. So that concludes the information. Make sure that you keep an eye out, subscribe to our channel. We're gonna have the whole project finished and you can watch it then. Like us if you like us, share if you like to share, and we'll see you again soon.